Okay, that's good to know. It's easier. All right. Okay, if you just joined us, please don't forget to type your name in the chat box. And I left a check-in question for you guys asking you how your login experience today. So if you haven't typed your answer in the chat box, I would appreciate it if you can leave me a comment so I can take that into consideration as we plan, for the next meetings. Okay, so while waiting for the others, I'm going to be sharing um, a copy of the agenda for you, so you would know or you would have an idea what we guys are going to do today. Share screen, Schoology, share. Okay, I'm going to be um, spotlighting my video. So, I screencast my Schoology page and later on my whiteboard just so those who have troubles logging in at least will be able to watch the video later on. And we will be doing this most likely for the first few days just so, nobody loses any part of the instruction. Since I will be doing that, I'm going to be spotlighting the video on me. What does that mean? Like, um, on everybody else's screen, I hope it works that way. Um, it's only going to be my video that's visible. So right now, you don't have to worry about showing your video. Um, Hopefully, though, in the next few days, you will be more comfortable in doing that. Please feel free to minimize the video as well. I mean, you've seen me. I haven't seen most of you, but I've seen the pictures on MySys. So, as we go forward, hopefully we'll be able to, welcome each other into our homes, right? So, good morning, everybody. If you have parents and guardians in the house, woohoo! Buenos dias, good morning, and welcome to Virtual Fall 2020. I'm still admitting some people. Um, right now, I am sharing my Schoology screen with you guys. So, yesterday, if you guys were not with us, we did the keywords in math problems. We didn't finish the four fours. And those are, extra topics designed for support, just, quick reviews. So, today we will be starting on um, the book. We're going to start on the textbook. So I will probably go back to the four fours next Monday support meeting. Just to clarify some of the questions that I received in Schoology yesterday, if the Nearpod code did not work for you, don't worry about it. Um, and for the whiteboard fee, the whiteboards cannot be saved after each session, but we didn't use that either because I didn't have time for the four fours. But every time we use the whiteboard, I can only print the whiteboards as PDF at the end of the session, but the room itself cannot be saved. So we have to use a new whiteboard code each time. So in cases when you find yourself lost or, whether the code is not working or not, don't worry about it. Normally, I use them during lives, so they don't kind of transfer all the time to in independent work. Okay, so that was yesterday. If you did your warm up in Schoology yesterday, please make sure that you have a copy of that warm up over here. Which reminds me, I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to kind of ask me some questions about the digital notebooks. So please type in the chat box if you have any questions, because I did receive a lot of questions on that in Schoology, but it's kind of hard to explain. So I'm going to give you about 2 to 3 minutes. Go ahead and type them in the chat box. Thank you. Okay, I didn't know how to submit the four fours and keywords. Don't worry about it, Vincent. The keywords are on the Nearpod, so it doesn't necessarily transfer to independent work. I will look into that as to how I'm grading it in Schoology. Ideally, when everything is already working, then most likely you will grade everything. But like right now, this week is more like a trial and error stage when it comes to those different platforms. But I do have some negotiables. But for, you know, platforms like that for live participation, don't worry so much about them. What's important is you're engaging in the lesson and you're trying to participate each time. Okay, I hope that I did answer your question. So, if there is one thing that you were not able to submit, I'll look into Schoology hopefully this week. You know, I'm normally very good at grading the Schoology work each time. But this few weeks is just so busy with making sure everybody logs in or we reach out to everyone when it comes to attendance. So be patient on that. Thank you. We don't do the 4-4s. Yes, honey, we're going to start with the textbook lessons today. And the 4-4s is more of those reviews, you know, kind of for Monday support meetings. So don't worry about it. Okay, thank you. All right, other questions about the digital notebook? One more minute. Now, for the digital notebook, when you entered or when you saved a copy of the digital notebook for the All About Me slide, um, you probably didn't have all the slides that I'm using. But what you can do is if you right click, okay, on a slide, you can duplicate it. Let's say, for example, the slide you see right now, um, the format is in the digital notebook that I shared with you, but the words may not be there. So you don't have to copy like the words exactly. But for example, since we did a warm up yesterday on Schoology, so you know that you're just going to post or screenshot that one from Schoology and paste it over here. Okay, so what you see mostly on my digital notebook on a daily basis are instructions or guides for you to do. So you don't have to like write down, maybe the titles would be good, but you can design it however you want it based on what works for you. Okay, so what is our agenda today? Um, our agenda today is go over the real number system and then look at some properties about real numbers. And then we're going to dive into our lesson, which is on solving simple equations. Now, for your independent work, um, you do have one in Schoology and solving simple equations in Delta Math. Okay, so we have a packed agenda today. So we're gonna get started. Um, all right, so I'm gonna put this on full screen so you guys can see it better. Okay. Um, Now these are just some, Google images that I found, and they're very useful. I think it's so much better compared to just typing in the words, because they give you a very cool visual showing how the types of numbers are related. So the real number system is important to be familiar with because when you go to Algebra 2, you will be coming up with solutions that are not real numbers. So I just want to emphasize that in Algebra 1, we will be looking at the real number system most of the time. Okay, so when you were a baby, when you started counting, you started with one, two, three. So that's why they're called natural or counting numbers. Okay, when you add the zero to the set, then you now call them the set of whole numbers. Now, when you add those signed numbers that I asked you to simplify last week, then those are called integers. And then the third set is called rational. Now, the root word there is ratio, ratio. So the word ratio means it's like a relationship between two numbers, right? So a rational number is actually a number that can be written in the form a over b. So pretty much you can think of it as a fraction, okay? So, however, if you write, let's say, one third, one third is 0.3333. So since it can be written as a ratio between two numbers, it is still a rational, but it is also a repeating decimal. Okay. Now, outside that set of rational numbers, so pretty much it's just split into two, rational and irrational. So, irrational are those that are non terminating or non repeating. For example, when you get square root of 7. So, if you get square root of 7 in a calculator, um, the decimal counterpart does not terminate, but it doesn't repeat the digits either. So, that's an example of an irrational number. So what I'm going to share with you, let me pause this share for now, is I will be asking you to, classify some numbers depending on what they are based on the real number system. And we're going to do that. Give me one sec. When you have a lot of windows open, it is kind of hard to. Okay, so I'm going to share these with you. Um, okay. It is a Nearpod one, and just like what I said earlier, it sometimes does not necessarily transfer to independent work. So sometimes I upload it as, student paste, but most of the time I just use it for live. Okay, I'm gonna go to chat and send you a link. There you go. Now, if the link doesn't work for you, please type your name in the uh, chat box. Oh, I think my Bixby is getting my audio. Okay. All right, please try to open that link. All right, so I do see some questions right now. If I had an algebra eighth grade, should we take geometry? That's a good question. It depends, honey, on your test results. So if you had I don't know how they're doing it because we were shut down due to COVID last time. But if there was sufficient information to kind of back it up, let's say for example the letter grade was very good, very high, and the test results, or maybe a teacher can kind of recommend that you can move up to geometry. It will depend on the counselor, honey. So the thing about it is we don't have a lot of ways to verify, because of the COVID shutdown. I'm not saying, nobody can go up to geometry because I do have some ninth graders as well in my geometry class. So I don't know what system the counselors use, but that could be like one thing that you can email the counselor about. Yeah, because I don't want you to feel bad that, oh, I'm stuck in this class. So I want you to have like a clear answer about that. So can you move up to geometry? Because if you can, then if you are in the STEAM magnet, I am also doing the geometry class. So then you'll probably be missing some classes or some lessons if you should be there but is not enrolled. Okay, I hope that clarified your concern. All right, so the number pi, I mostly see irrational. Okay, but is irrational the only possible answer? So remember, how the diagram works is any set that's bigger than a given one or a given subset can be used to classify a number. So um, maybe you can edit your board by writing, aside from classifying it as irrational. Now, what other type of number can you use to describe it? So if a number is irrational, then definitely it can also be classified as what? Pardon me for that background noise. I think it's cleaning time right here. Okay. Yep, I mostly see irrational, guys, but there's one more possible answer. So anything that's called rational or irrational in general, they are also called what? They are the answer I'm looking for is in the title. Okay? So if a number is, let's say, an integer, it is also called a real number because an integer is in the set of real numbers. So same as there you go, look. Uh-huh. So Yep. So pi is irrational, but it is also a real number. So the correct answers, possible answers that we're looking for is it should be irrational and real at the same time. Okay, so let's keep going. What about this one? Um, one fourth. One fourth. So you can write multiple answers. It's not limited to just one answer. Okay, that was quick. Very good. Aside from being rational, don't forget there's like a bigger set. Awesome. Okay, I think Luke is kind of getting the. Yep. Okay, it's getting my point. Yeah, it's rational. So every time you say it's rational, it is also real. Okay, we cannot classify it natural because the natural are those that you teach to a 1 year old or a 2 year old when you're counting. So the natural are the counting numbers, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Okay, so the answers we're looking for here are rational and real. So if you change one fourth to a decimal, it is also, a terminating decimal. Oh, hi. So if you just checked in, please type your name in the chat box. And we just click on the Nearpod link that I sent in the chat box, and we are just classifying the real number system based on the discussion that we had in the diagram. Okay, -9. So we're expecting more answers here. Classify -9. What is -9? Cool. That's right, Chris. Some more. It's integer, it's real. Okay, I'm going to take down the whole number part because whole numbers are the positive ones. Okay, so what makes whole from different from integer is that they're positives. Okay. All right, integer real. Okay, cool. All right. So what we're going to do next is we are going to try to find, um, real number solutions to equations. And as I have said, um, when you were in middle school, you've probably seen, how to solve equations. But what we're going to do different this Algebra 9 in high school is we're going to justify our every step. So it's like a preparation for geometry when you try to come up with two-column proofs. But before that, thank you for your participation. I'm going to be saving this as a PDF later on. So you can, um, this one, by the way, gives you an option to save it. So if you want to save it, you can do that. Otherwise, I'm going to close it for now. Okay. The next one I'm going to share with you is, okay, this is kind of small, so I'm going to, all right. Now, do you see my screen right now? It should say independent work, and it has a lot of, some stuff in it. Okay. All right. Okay. So when you were in middle school, I am not sure you know, how detailed your discussion was of the properties, but I just want to go over them very quickly. Um, I got this from Math Bits, and you can type that up too. You could say properties from Math Bits, and it will automatically show in your Google. Um, I found this useful because it has the verbal hints. So pretty much, you know, these are the properties. It's showing you an example, and it's providing a brief explanation of what the property is about. So for today, we will be focusing on the properties of, addition, multiplication, and so on. So the very common property is the distributive property, which you will be needing later on in your independent work in Schoology. So pretty much you're given some equations and you have to kind of match them with these properties. All right. If you can take a picture of your screen right now or take a screenshot so you can paste it on your digital notebook, that will be nice. Okay. So the name itself gives us, a quick idea of what the property is about. Commutative is when you switch the order of the addends. Addends are, the numbers being added. Well, commutative property for multiplication is when you switch the places of the factors. Okay. Now, associative property changes the ordering or grouping of the addends, and same is true for the factors in multiplication. So whichever you group together, the product would be the same. Additive identity is, when you add 0 to any number, it returns the same value. While for multiplicative identity, multiply 1 to any number, it will still give you the original result or the original number. While the additive inverses, okay, is the negative of the number, because when you add a number and it's negative, you get a 0. Okay, why 0? Because that's the additive identity, right? The identity element here is 0. So the additive inverse is that number that brings you back to the identity element. While in multiplicative inverse, um, when you multiply a number by its reciprocal, okay, there you go, reciprocal. This is 4 over 1 originally. So now if you flip 4 over 1 around, you will get 1 over 4. And that will bring you back to the identity element in multiplication. So I'm going to give you the other side as like a reading assignment for you guys today while you do the independent work in Schoology, which is unpublished right now. So I'm going to publish that later on when it's time for individual work. So I'm going to stop the share right now and be ready with your notes, because we will be using these properties to study how to solve linear equations. So now I'm going to switch to my slide. Okay. So based on any method that you know, or you can also do it mentally. So I want you to, on your notebook or on a piece of paper that you must not throw away because you have to take a picture of that later on, I want you to solve these equations on your own first. I'll give you about 2 minutes to do that. When you're done, you're gonna type your name. Type your answer in the chat box. Give me one sec. Share screen, and then I need the smart notebook. All right, here we go. I hope you see it now. So using any method that you know, could be mentally, could be, using what you learned in middle school. So go ahead and solve each equation. But as you solve it, don't forget there's a magic word over here. You have to justify it. And that's the new thing that we will be doing. You have to justify um, every step that you use in your equation. Sorry about that. Every time I connect my writing slate, I have to, or it plays a sound. I'll figure out how to take that off next time. Type your answer in the chat box once you've tried it. Please make sure you write legibly on a piece of paper on your notebook, because later on you guys are going to take a picture of your work and you have to duplicate a slide in your digital notebook and paste it there. Okay. I'll show you later where you can paste it. Okay, I'm waiting for some answers in the chat box. So for letter A, what should x be equal to? So when you subtract 3 from it, you will get -5. What should x be? So when you subtract 3 from it, you get -5. And most of the answers that I see are, let me open the chat. Um, all right. Some already have answered the second one also. Okay. Cool. I see mostly -2. Okay. Somebody has already solved the other one, -3.7. Okay, cool. So now, if you guys did that in your head, good job. But in Algebra 1, since we are preparing for geometry, which is proving, you guys have to write down your solutions and justify each step. So, in other words, we guys are going to, um, okay, we're going to write down statements. So, this is for letter A. I write big, so please pardon me for that, but I am showing right now a two-column format for solving equations. And I know that this is one of those few that, students say, oh, I could do that in my head. Okay, but remember, and one of the expectations for geometry is to write a two-column proof. And our job as Algebra 1 teachers is to prepare you for that. So, for example, in letter A, let's write down x minus 3 is equal to -5. So every time that you start with the problem, you're going to write given. And in geometry, that's what they do as well. Okay, so how were you able to isolate the x on its own? So what did you do to -3 to solve the answer? I wish it will show like the guide so I will know what I'm writing. Okay, so you're going to move that -3 over to the other side, right? So you get x is equal to -5 plus 3. So when you're actually moving um, a constant from one to the other, you're actually adding 3 underneath it, right? So I'm not sure if that's one method that you guys used when solving, but when you're adding a constant to both sides of an equation so you can eliminate a number, now which of the properties that we talked about earlier kind of justifies that? So the clue is the operation that you use. Since you added a number to both sides of the equation, then we're going to write addition property of equality. Now, when you go to geometry, currently I now allow my students to use acronyms because they're already familiar with it. So addition property of equality means you're adding a constant to both sides of the equation. So when you guys just combine like terms, so then you're just going to write x is equal to -2. So that's a negative sign. So when you guys are just simplifying or combine like terms, you just put simplify. Okay, some students write combine like terms, but in geometry, it's just a general category, which is simplify. So in all math tasks that we will be doing, at least for the first or for the second week, we will be justifying our answers only for the second week because the objective is to be able to identify the properties that we use in solving them. Okay, now I'm going to duplicate this slide so we can. Oh, there's a question in the chat. Give me one sec. Um, yes, Vincent, is there any way I can help you today? Oh, okay. All right. Um, so I'm gonna erase these so we can um, do letter B. Okay. So for letter B, we're gonna do the same thing. So we're going to start with the given information, which is 0.9 is equal to y plus 2.8. So again, we justify that by writing given. So you have to get the y by itself, right? So that means you have to subtract 2.8 from both sides of the equation. So when you do that, um, what property are you using? So you're going to end up here with y is equal to, okay, what was the answer that you got earlier? Remember, when you move this one, it turns negative. So I don't think it will be bigger than 2.8. So can somebody now type in the chat box what the correct answer is? So you're not going to end up adding them, but you will. There you go. Okay. All right. So it's going to be negative 1.9. Cool. Okay. So negative 1.9. Sorry about my handwriting. Okay. The last time I used this was in summer school. So I'm still warming up, kind of. Okay. So let's write down the properties that we used earlier. Definitely when we subtracted both sides, um, subtracted 2.8 from both sides, that's going to become subtraction property of equality. Okay, you can write that one better than I just did. Okay, and then when you combine the like terms, so we're just going to keep repeating simplify. Okay, so some of the equations we will be looking at in the future are not just simple equations like this, but in the textbook, um, it starts out with one-step equations, and that's how your delta math IW later on will also be like. Um, all right. Okay. So now let's look at another example. What if, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this 3 times just so we would have enough space for each one. Okay. All right. So if you guys now have a fraction, so what are you going to do? So we start out with negative n over 5 is equal to negative 3. Again, I have that imaginary table with the statements and columns. So first, we have to eliminate the fraction, and in order to do that, we have to multiply, right? We have to multiply. In middle school, we sometimes say, "Oh, I know, we cross multiply the 5 to the right." That's cool, and that is actually correct. Okay, however, when we use the properties, we have to kind of, write down the details. So how are we going to do that? So we know that to eliminate the fraction, we have to multiply both sides by um, a number, which is the same number that we see at the bottom. So which is either positive 5 or negative 5. But why am I choosing negative 5? So the negative can actually be placed or group with the denominator. You can make this n over negative 5 because ideally it's supposed to be in the middle, right? So if it's in the middle, um, you can regroup it to or with the numerator or the denominator. So to eliminate the negative sign, because we want the variable to be positive, we multiply both sides by negative 5. Okay, so then what you're going to have here is you will end up with just n. Okay, sorry, I accidentally stopped the video. Okay, so you're going to start here with n is equal to positive 15. All right, so now let's write down the properties. Oh, there you go. The that diamond guide is already um, showing. Okay, so when you multiply by negative 5, so what's the correct property for that? You don't just say, oh, we're going to cross multiply, because now you have to line up with the properties. Um, so what is the relationship between, 5 and negative 5? So 5 in the denominator, it was originally 1 over 5, right? But we multiply it by 5 over 1. So originally it was 1 over negative 5. We multiplied by negative 5 over 1. So how are these related? So if you remember that R word from the discussion on the properties, we call those ones reciprocals of each other, right? So when you multiply both sides of an equation by the reciprocal of one number, we're actually using what properties? So the operation we use is multiplication. Sorry for that sloppy handwriting. Multiplication property of equality. Okay. And when we simplify these, like negative 5 divided by another negative 5 over here, that turned to 1, right? Okay, so why is that possible? Well, because we saw in the property earlier that there is such a thing as multiplicative inverse. Multiplicative inverse. Supposed to be a letter V. There you go. So the multiplicative inverse says if you multiply a number by its reciprocal, then the result just turns to 1. All right. So, and then after that, we just simplified -3 and -5. So as you can see here, I used two properties in one step. So I multiplied that equation by a number, and that number is the multiplicative inverse of this fraction. Okay? All right. So what we're going to do now is we'll see if you guys can use um, maybe I think it's easier to write on the phone, or you can also draw it by hand in our whiteboard. So today I'm going to start a new whiteboard session or class. Give me 1 second as I set that up. Sorry for my background noise. Okay, so let's go to whiteboard C, and then I'm going to give you the code, or we'll just share the link with you via chat. So I'm making a new whiteboard. You will be directed to the room I'm going to have over here. Create new class. Okay, and then I'm going to send you this link via chat. Okay, here we go. All right. So go to whiteboard C and okay. Let me show you the two problems that we're gonna try. Okay, I'm gonna switch to my whiteboard. If you could either, you know, um, okay, so it's pi x equals -2 pi. Maybe I can um, resize this one so you guys can see. Okay, so on your whiteboard, we're not going to write down all the properties, but we're going to just show how we're going to do it. So you're going to solve the equation pi x is equal to -2 pi. Pi x is equal to -2 pi. Okay. So go ahead and write that on your whiteboard and show how to get the value of x. Show how to get the value of x. Okay. I'm going to be switching to my whiteboard right here so I can see how you guys are doing it. Okay, let me switch back to the problem if you guys still need it. Pi x is equal to -2x. If you finish that ahead of time, go ahead and solve letter C as well. So in all these examples, their common denominator, I mean their bottom line is you're either multiplying or you'll be using another operation to get the x by itself, and that's what I want you to show in your whiteboard. Okay, let me go back to the whiteboard and see how you guys are doing. Okay. All right. So now what are you going to do? What's that number or symbol that comes with x that you want to take away because it shouldn't be there? I see different methods you guys are doing. So you guys are turning pi into 3.14. That's cool. That's a good start. And I can see somebody just dividing both sides of the equation by that symbol. Okay, whiteboard is kind of updating right now. Okay. All right. So whichever method you guys use, okay. How is it? Um how is this whiteboard be like working for you? I know it's kind of hard the first time. Um I used to write with my mouse as well. So now I have a carpal tunnel. So I have to use that brace for my hand like every night. So I had to buy a writing slate for myself. Okay. That's cool. Hi Aiden. And all right, I can see some answers already. Cool. And if you started with 3.14, that's fine. Keep going, honey. That's also correct. Cool. Okay. Nice, nice. And remember, if you finish, you might want to, take a screenshot of what you did and place some evidence in your digital notebook. Okay. Yep. It's up. It's updating right now. Okay, later on I'm going to be saving your boards. Yeah, I can save all of them as PDF. Okay, so that's how I can verify. Okay, so now that you've solved it, let's go to the other part of the lesson, which is identifying the properties. So in the chat box, if you could please type one or all of the properties that you use, that would be nice, starting from the given. So don't write given anymore. So after the given, what did you do? What operation did you use? Um, to come up with your answer. So I'm gonna go to the chat and, you know, wait for your answers. Nice emoji, Aiden. Oh, Tabitha, you okay? I know it's kind of frustrating the first time. Imagine how it was for me when I wanted to like try these out. It took me a week before I got used to it. So I'm old school, guys. I'm probably older than most of your parents. So you guys are more tech savvy than I am. Okay, so I'm waiting for some of your answers in the chat. So, what properties did you use? When you divided, see, that's the clue. When you divided both sides of the equation by pi, what property is that? What property is that? So, when you divided, I can see Sophia is exploring with the drawing tools right now. Okay, cool. All right, so when you divided both sides by pi, you call that what? Come on, what property of equality? Anyone? Somebody type in the chat. Division property. Awesome, Brian. My dad turned. Oh, cool. 37. I'm 39. La choice. I'm that old. Okay. All right, so division property of equality, awesome. And then when you guys just canceled out, the pi on both sides, remember, don't just say, oh, I canceled them out. Because when you take standard tests, they're not going to accept that. Division property, okay, Nyla wrote given, division property of equality, and simplify. Woohoo! And those are the answers that we're looking for. Thank you, Nyla, for providing everything. Okay, I'm also going to add multiplicative inverse. Because remember, when you cancel the pi, right? When you divided pi from both sides, it's actually a disguised version of, can I write here? So when you write pi and then you multiply it by its, or you divided both sides by pi, these are actually reciprocals, right? So that means these are multiplicative inverses. So multiplicative inverse. There you go. I should write better next time. Okay. All right. So those are the properties that we can use for this example. Now I'm going to clear my ink and so I can save your stuff later on. Um, Clear ink. Okay, so let's go back to our smart notebook and let's do our last example for today. Okay, in 2012, Usain Bolt won the 200-meter dash with the time off. Write and solve an equation to find his average speed to the nearest hundredth of a meter. Okay. Write and solve an equation to find his average speed to the nearest hundredth of a meter. Okay. So how will you solve this? Can somebody write that formula in the chat that you learned from science previously? Like, what is that equation that shows you the relationship between distance, rate, and time? Okay. So what is that equation that we need? Somebody write in the chat. We learned it from science last year. I'm not sure if it's last year, maybe 2 years ago. Anybody? I'm waiting for somebody to write that formula in the chat. It's an equation that gives you something with d and t. Awesome. Yeah, d over t. Cool. But where did that expression come from? Look, what's the original equation? The original equation is distance is equal to, okay, let me see in the chat. Yep, distance over time. But okay, that expression came from distance is equal to rate. Sorry, let me go to chat. Average distance. Okay, average speed is equal to distance over time. Okay, so originally distance is equal to rate times time, correct? But since we're looking for the average speed, the speed translate to the rate. So that's why you guys were saying, oh, d over t, right? So what we're going to do in symbols is this is actually d is equal to rt, but we want to get the r by itself. So we use division property of equality. There you go. To get the value of r. So if we find an equation for r, we get d over t. And you guys are right. Okay, so what I would like you to do is use this formula now that we came up with. Use this formula to find Usain Bolt's average speed to the nearest hundredth of a meter per second. So you're going to round off your answer to two decimal places. Go ahead and do that, and I'll wait for your answers in the chat box. You're going to substitute. That's one of the properties you're going to read about later on. You're going to substitute, okay, the values given in the problem. Okay. All right. Waiting for answers. You can use your phones as your calculators, or you can go to decimals.com scientific, and it gives you an instant scientific calculator on your computer. So there you go. That looks like it. So that's a scientific calculator on your computer. So Luke said 200 divided by 19.32. I completely forgot. It's okay. Well, that's why we're giving examples, honey. We just keep on practicing. It's not. This is what I tell my own kids, because they also do math stuff here at home. Every example is like a new way or a new chance for you to get it. So if you didn't get the previous example, drop it. Don't dwell so much on it. You know, if you see another example, oh, I can do this. And I don't know if you've seen that video where it says you have to be more confident in yourself. You could say, oh, I don't know how to do this. Don't say, I don't know how to do this, but you say, I don't know how to do this yet. Right? Okay, so about 10.35, 352. Cool. Okay, most of you are getting the same answers. All right. So in your Delta Math homework today, let me go back to your digital notebook. So going back to your digital notebook, if you guys saved screenshots of what you guys did or you took pictures from your phone, so in your digital notebook, you know that you can duplicate a slide, right? So I showed you how to do that previously. But if you guys see that, oh, I'm running out of space, etc., so you can duplicate any slide that you want, just so you can add the screenshots and stuff like that. All right. So what you're going to do now for your individual work time went by so fast. I feel like, you know, um, and I'm sorry you know, if I'm going too fast, just let me know. I will be directing everybody to their individual work, but I can stay online for maybe, until 10 o'clock. If you guys have some questions. But let me Okay, so in week 2, I'm going to publish this one. Okay, so what you need to do now for individual work is, um, okay, you guys are going to do an interleave review properties. Let me open it for you. Um, Preview. Okay, so you don't have to worry if you were not able to catch up with, writing the important stuff because I already attached those for you. So the first one is the diagram for the real number system. It is it also has a link to like an additional video to kind of supplement. And then the real number properties is that big graphic organizer with so many details in it. So I already attached that one. So maybe you want to spend time, excuse me, looking at these two before starting your new attempt. Okay? All right. So that's your first individual work. The second individual work is you're going to go to deltamath.com. Okay. And you guys will be doing homework 1.1. If you guys were not able to follow last time regarding how to enter Delta Math in your digital notebook, there is a page there that has some instructions and the teacher code. So maybe you want to go back to that later on. And I did send a lot of text series last night, a lot of text messages. If you can refrain from sending urgent messages through Schoology, like you're working on something and you need an answer now, I do not check my Schoology until, after 4 p.m. I do some self care and take care of my family as well. So I don't check my Schoology um, until probably you know, um, 9 or 10 in the evening. So if it's urgent, that's why we have Remind, correct? Because whether I'm in the kitchen or living room, I'm on my phone. Okay, or I have my phone with me. So your independent work today, aside from the one in Schoology, is called IW 1.1 Solving Simple Equations. Okay, and if you guys haven't finished the mental math homework or IW last time, please go ahead and work on that as well. Okay. All right. Do you guys have any questions? If you have no questions, you are free to leave. I will see you on Thursday. Have a good day. What we do the 1.1 review questions. Uh, um, 1.1. Yes, honey, the one on Schoology. We'll do them. The interleave review. Thanks for clarifying. Yeah, I think. Yeah. So and you screenshot it. Yes, when you guys are done, so screenshot and just duplicate any page in your Schoology so you can have space to put it in or to paste it on. Yep, this one I The grades are due like in 4 weeks for the first progress report. So we're going to, yep, ask you to turn in your notebook. You're welcome, honey. And if you guys have other concerns regarding programming, please do not hesitate to ask your counselor. Yeah, and believe me, misprogramming of kids have happened in the past. The worst scenario I had was it was already the middle of the second week when the counselor switched a student from algebra to geometry after verifying all the information. I am also starting with geometry like today, like I started with the textbook with you guys. So please make sure that you reach out to the counselors regarding whether or not you were misprogrammed. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a great day. If you want to give me some feedback about how our first day went, please message me. Don't don't hesitate in saying, Miss, can you slow down a little bit next time? So I would know how to kind of make this one, more beneficial for all of you. Okay? You guys have a good day. Bye. Enjoy. You too. Bye.